Hey guys, what's up? It's TDRP Cubing here, and today I have a 6-cube unboxing. Half the cubes are W.C.A puzzles, and the other half is non-W.C.A puzzles, so this should be pretty fun. And so for the first cube, we have got the new MGC3 Elite version 2. I haven't heard a whole lot about this cube, so I'm not exactly sure what to expect. Alright, so it came with a couple of pamphlets, 2 extra cube logos, some sort of adjustment tool, and some extra magnets. Alright, so here's the cube, so let's get into first turns. Right away, it feels very dry and kind of sandy. Like, it feels like there is no lube in this thing at all. Speed-wise, it's pretty good. Yeah, this cube really needs some lube. And like I said, I didn't really have any expectations for this cube, but I also wasn't expecting it to feel like this. I definitely think that with break-in and setup, this cube will be quite a bit better, and it does have some potential. It's definitely not the worst feeling 3x3 I've tried recently. Corner cutting on it is pretty decent. Yeah, that's pretty good. And another thing I noticed is the bright shades. They actually look pretty nice on this cube. I think these are brighter than their usual shades. And I do have the cubing encoded MGC Elite version 1, and right now, I'm not sure if this cube is any better. I mean, obviously the cubing encoded one is going to be better right now because it's already set up, but I think this one has a chance to beat it once I set this one up. And so now I'm going to go ahead and check out the magnet adjustment system. Currently, it feels like it's on a somewhat weak strength. It's kind of in between weak and strong. And I'm not sure how many settings there are. So as it turns out, there are only 2 settings, so let's go ahead and put it on the other setting and see how the cube feels then. Alright, let's begin. Alright, so now that the cube is on the other setting, whatever that is, let's go ahead and see how it feels. Okay, so the other setting is definitely the weak setting, and the cube actually feels maybe a little bit nicer on that setting. I know I've said many times before that I prefer stronger magnets, but this actually feels quite a bit better right now. Like, I feel more free to turn the cube with it on the weaker setting. With it on this setting, the pieces are just gliding right now. Definitely doesn't feel main or backup worthy, but the turning still feels pretty solid. And so now I'm going to go ahead and check out the spring adjustment system. So from what I've heard, you can actually use this system with your hands. And so let's go ahead and see how many settings there are. So this is actually really hard to see, and I'm not even sure that you're going to be able to see it, but there are some really tiny numbers here, and it turns out there are only 6 settings. And so right now its default is the first setting, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on the 4th setting. So let's go ahead and try that out. Alright, so now that the spring compression is on the 4th setting, let's go ahead and try it out. Alright, it was definitely pretty difficult to adjust the spring compression. I think that the regular MoU spring compression is a lot better. Like, the system for the regular MoU cubes is definitely better than this one. But so far, I think this definitely feels a little bit better, but I think if it were on a lighter setting, it would actually feel even better than it does now. It still hasn't quite hit me as a cube that would really compete for my main or backup, but I'm sure that might change after setup. And so now I'm going to go ahead and try a speed solve on it. Alright, so now that the cube's all scrambled up, I'm going to try solving it in 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, that felt kind of decent, but that didn't feel super good. Not entirely sure what that time was, of course, but it didn't feel great. And so yeah, so far this cube definitely doesn't feel the best, but I think it has a lot of potential. And it's really hard to compare it because of just how dry it feels, and I think that lube will definitely help it out a lot. And so yeah, it's a pretty decent cube. Alright, and so for the next cube, we have got the new Dayan Nezha 5x5. And it came in 2 versions, so I got the strong version. This is a pretty fancy looking box. Alright, so it came with a pretty nice looking cube bag, along with a screwdriver and some extra springs. And so here's the cube, so let's get into first turns. Alright, that's actually not bad. It has a pretty soft feel, and I actually kind of like it. And I have heard some mixed reviews on this cube. I know that Cameron from Speedcube Shop didn't really like it, but JR Cuber did, so that's why I got it, because I really wanted to try it out for myself. What's kind of weird about it is it feels kind of cheap. Like, it definitely doesn't feel like incredibly cheap like a dollar store cube or anything, but it feels like a little bit cheaper than, let's say, the Valk 5. Don't get me wrong, the feeling right now is pretty good, but it's just a little cheap feeling, which is kind of weird. I'm definitely going to speed solve this quite a few times after this video. And so let's see the corner cutting. Alright, you can do about 1 cubie. And so for 2 layers in, it locks up at 1 cubie. You can do about half a cubie on 2 layers in. Yeah, this thing doesn't feel bad at all. I'm definitely not sure this will be close to my main, which is the Angstrom Valk 5, but I also don't think it's as bad as Speedcube Shop said it was. Right now, I feel pretty in the middle about this cube. And to be honest, just because of what Cameron said, I actually had some pretty low expectations for this thing, and this has definitely surpassed those expectations. It's not quite as bad as I thought it would be. In fact, right now, I don't think it really feels all that bad at all. With setup and some tensioning, this thing may feel amazing. Because right now it's pretty tight, so I'm definitely going to loosen it up a little bit. And after that, along with some lube, I think this cube may be pretty good. If I had to compare this to any 2 cubes, I'd probably say it feels like it's in between the Diansheng Magnetic 5x5 and the YJ Yushuang version 2. Like, the quality part, as in how cheap the plastic feels, is kind of close to the Diansheng 5x5, but its speed and performance is pretty close to the Yushuang version 2. And so yeah, for Dayan's first 5x5, this is pretty good. I definitely got to give them credit because I did not expect this cube to turn this well, and I definitely can't wait to set it up. This is a really solid cube. Alright, so for the next cube, we have got the X-Man Wingy version 2. This is definitely the cube I'm the most excited for out of all these speed cubes. Alright, so it looks like it came with some accessories, and those accessories are a couple of pamphlets, a business card, and a spring adjustment tool. Alright, here's the cube, so let's get into first turns. Wow, this is really smooth feeling so far. Already, I think this cube feels pretty amazing. It's definitely a backup main contender. Just first impressions, this cube is already better than the Wingy version 1. That cube was alright for the time, but I think this cube is way better. And Scube isn't my favorite event by all means, but it's definitely an event that I like competing in. And I think this cube would perform pretty well during a competition. And so let's go ahead and check out its magnet adjustment system. I heard that all you have to do is take off the corner piece like this, and there you go. And I heard it's every opposite corner, so these ones have the spring adjustment system and these ones have the magnet adjustment system. So as you can see, there are only 3 settings, and currently it is on the 2nd, I think. Correction, there are 4 settings, and right now it's on the 2nd. And apparently moving it this way makes it stronger, so that means that if I move it the other way, it'll make it weaker. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is put it on the strongest setting. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so one thing I want to mention before I try this cube again is that magnet adjustment system was extremely easy to use. I have never had that easy of a time taking caps off a cube before, so I definitely want to give X-Man props for that. That is really cool. And so now that the magnets are on the strongest setting, let's go ahead and try the cube out. I can definitely feel the difference. Yeah, I've got to say, I think it actually does feel better on the stronger setting. Maybe if I made it one setting weaker, then it might be even better. But right now, it feels pretty good. Yeah, I definitely think this thing benefits from a stronger magnet strength, especially after I set this thing up, because it'll probably make it even faster than it is now. Right now, I would say it's at a pretty medium speed, which works well for me. And so let's go ahead and try out the spring adjustment system. And so I think all I have to do is take off this corner cap right here. And there you go. So it has 5 settings, and right now it's on the 3rd. So since it's on the 3rd, I'm going to go ahead and put it all the way on the 5th setting. Alright, and so now that the tool is all ready, let's go ahead and put the spring compression on the 5th setting. So let's begin. Alright, so it turns out I've actually been doing this wrong. You're supposed to turn it anti-clockwise, and I've just been turning it clockwise. So now I'm going to go ahead and fix that mistake. Alright, so despite that little mistake there, I have got to say these have been the 2 easiest adjustment settings I've ever got to use. So I've definitely got to thank X-Man for making them so easy to use. And so with that being said, since this cube is now on the 5th setting for the spring adjustment, let's go ahead and try it out. Alright, I think that actually made this cube worse. It just feels kind of weird now compared to how it felt on the 3rd setting, so I'll definitely put it back. But nonetheless, this cube still feels really good, and I am quite pleased with this performance. And so now let's go ahead and try speed solving on it. Alright, so now that the cube's all scrambled up, let's go ahead and try speed solving it in 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, that didn't feel too great. However, I definitely think that after putting the spring compression back on the 3rd setting and setting this thing up, I'll get much better times on it. But yeah, right now, like I said, I am pretty pleased with this thing. It feels really, really good, and this is a huge main contender for me right now. Alright, so heading on to the non-W.C.A puzzles. For the first one, we have got the new SengSo Mr. M Square-0. This is a lot like the Square-0 that DG Cubes made years ago, and I definitely can't wait to try this thing out. It looks like a really easy puzzle, but I think it'll also be pretty fun to solve. Alright, so it came with a pamphlet. Well, that was interesting. Alright, so here the cube is, so let's go ahead and get into first turns. Alright, it's definitely a little bit tight, and I'm not really feeling the magnets. I know they're there. Yeah, you can definitely feel them when you're turning slowly, but turning quickly, you really can't feel them. I'm just glad you can speed solve on this thing somewhat. And like DG Cube said in his video, this is basically like a 2x2 version of the Square-1. And here it is compared to a regular Square-1. As you can see, they have basically conjoined the corners and edges together like this. And so yeah, this is a pretty interesting puzzle. And so now I'm going to go ahead and scramble it up and try to solve on it. Alright, you can't really scramble this thing up very much, so now I'm going to go ahead and try to solve it. Alright, that was a pretty easy solve. And so yeah, this cube is definitely not difficult by any means, but I think it is still a really fun thing to solve. And it's just a pretty cool looking puzzle, and I'm glad that DG Cube's design from years ago actually got mass produced. And so yeah, this is a pretty cool puzzle. Alright, so heading on to the next cube, we have got the SengSo Mr. M Square-2. Now, I already own a Square-2, but it's pretty unstable and kind of difficult to solve just without it popping, so I really wanted to try this cube once I saw that it came out. And I'm really hoping that I'll be able to actually speed solve on this cube a little bit. Alright, so this one also came with a pamphlet. Alright, so here's the cube, and so let's go ahead and try it out. Alright, it doesn't turn amazingly. It definitely feels a lot more stable than the Calvin Square-2 that I have. And so as you can see, this thing can shapeshift a lot. It's a pretty cool puzzle. And so as you can see, I am now scrambling this thing up, and I'm going to try solving it pretty soon. And so now that this thing is scrambled up, I'm going to go ahead and try solving it. This may take a while. Alright, so that was a pretty fun and interesting solve, and it was definitely easier than trying to solve on this cube, which is the Calvin Square-2, so I'm really glad I got this cube. And so yeah, I definitely suggest buying this. It's a really fun puzzle. Alright, and so for the final cube of this unboxing, we have got the Calvin's Mini Conjoined 3x3 puzzle. So this cube is actually a bit bigger than I expected it to be. I thought it would be closer to the size of a keychain 3x3, but I still think it looks pretty interesting. And so let's go ahead and get into first turns and try this thing out. It's actually not that bad. I know Calvin's puzzle doesn't necessarily make the best turning puzzles, but this isn't that bad at all. And unlike the other conjoined 3x3 puzzle that I have, you can only turn 3 sides on this thing. So it's a lot like the Z bandage cube that I have. And so now I'm going to go ahead and scramble this thing up and give it a solve. Alright, so now this cube's all scrambled up, I'm going to go ahead and try to solve it. Alright, so that's one cube down. Alright, that was actually pretty easy. And so yeah, this is a really fun puzzle, and I definitely like it quite a bit. It's not the hardest thing in the world to solve. In fact, this was probably the second easiest cube to solve out of the 3 Non-W.C.A puzzles I unboxed. But I think it's a pretty nice novelty item, and it's also 2 mini 3x3s conjoined, so that's pretty cool. And so yeah, that's just about it. So that, guys, was the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you have any questions, then make sure to ask them down in the comments below. Besides that, have a good day and bye. See you next time.